Hi, my name is Steve Sanderson, former VP of Product Development for Food on the Table, and this is my video application for the 2013 Lean Startup Conference. I'd like to talk about surprising result in developer productivity and how I believe we need to update our expectations about everyone involved in changing the business. So let me start with a punchline. You might be surprised, but developers are not the most enthusiastic about getting out of the building and developing the empathy necessary to deeply understand customers, nor are they typically concerned with key business metrics. However, at Food on the Table, every developer became deeply engaged and empathetic with our customers and how we measured success. Because of this, they became tremendously more effective at changing the business. You might think I'm talking about the obvious folks, the UX and UI designers and front-end developers, but I'm really talking about everyone that was involved in the technology, all the way to the back-end developers. So how did this look? Well, every developer ultimately came to insist on understanding not only how their work was going to affect key business metrics, but insisted on a well-formed hypothesis backed with validated user learnings before drilling into the technology. So let me stop and contrast this with most development efforts, where developers typically measure their success in terms of some technical metrics. They don't measure them in terms of changing the business and delighting the customer. The rest of my talk's about three different areas. The first, how did we do this? The second, what are the implications? And lastly, let me end with a hypothesis I have about how this can be applied beyond greenfield startups into other settings, especially those teams in larger companies. So let me start with this by talking about root cause. Simply put, I think it's because we applied lean startup patterns to all the changes, including the smallest ones. So my education is probably a useful example. For a long time, I assumed that there was one way to apply lean startup, and there was local variations. However, when I started to talk to other teams that were applying lean startup and compare stories, what I discovered was that they had different ideas about when to apply the build, measure, learn pattern. That typically they'd apply them to big changes, to build the initial MVP. But when it came to day-to-day work, they wouldn't do that. They would follow non-lean startup approaches. Well, I realized that at Food on the Table, we were applying this for every change that we made, whether it was a significantly large new feature or it was a small wording change. We insisted on following the build, measure, learn pattern. So much so that for us, it became not minimal viable product, but in fact became minimal viable change. Let me stop here on my video application. I appreciate your consideration for the 2013 Lean Startup Conference, and I hope I have the chance to finish this talk there. Thanks.